For several months now, demonstrations have been taking place up and down the country in relation to Ireland's handling of refugees, economic migrants, and illegal immigrants. On the one hand, there is a group of people who find the government's response to our border security reckless and dangerous, and on the other hand, there is a group of people who suggest that government isn't doing enough for the foreigners who come here. Needless to say, one side has an argument worth consideration, and the other side relies heavily on the subversion of your emotions through lies. In this video, I will attempt to give my take on the situation from my own perspective and highlight some of the sinister moves made by government to further crush our freedom as peaceful dissenters. I want to begin by stating the following. Both the Irish government and the useful idiots do not differentiate between a refugee, an asylum seeker, an economic migrant, a document destroying criminal, or even a fraudulent climate change refugee. All come under the same humanitarian umbrella, regardless of their rights or motivations. It must also be said that Roderick O'Gorman has publicly admitted that the majority of the poor unfortunates coming from abroad happen to be single males, and for the past several months these men have been bussed up and down the country to be accommodated in working class communities, which has rightfully caused alarm.
Is there a reason for this? Why we're seeing more and more centres just accommodate only male asylum seekers?
Because a majority of international protection applicants are single males, and that's, I suppose, that is the necessity to provide accommodation for them.
Indeed, the Ukrainian women and children spoken about at the beginning of the war are truly a rare sight in the greater scheme of things, meaning the government have lied and continue to lie today. It should also be noted for the record that our politicians have instructed the relevant border authorities to soften or discard the process of vetting the mostly foreign men entering our country, which of course is not only a fundamental trespass against our sovereignty as a nation, but a serious risk to national security.
The security services here have reportedly warned the Home Secretary not to water down security checks. You in Ireland have welcomed already something like 2,500 Ukrainians so far. Have you conducted security checks on them?
We've had about 5,500
5,500
into Ireland at this stage. No, we will monitor and so on, but no, our primary impulse is to assist those fleeing war.
Government have incentivised, through a perverse policy of suicidal altruism, the practice of allowing military-aged men to come to Ireland under false pretences in their thousands, and their comfort is costing the taxpayer billions in the redistribution of wealth. Communities around the country affected by the housing of mainly foreign, unvetted men have expressed their disdain towards elected politicians who have shown no regard for the families of their constituents. In fact, the almost unanimous response by the political establishment is to brand mothers marching the streets with their children in a show of dissent as far-right or fascist. Parties and individuals dedicated to helping the working class have likened those who express fear for their communities to the murderous Nazis of World War II. And it has been claimed that Gino Kenny, TD, of People Before Profit, has allegedly contacted the workplaces of protesters in an attempt to have them fired, which of course, if true, is a truly heinous act worthy of severe repercussion.
Well, I came here on Thursday.
Yeah.
But I done a stupid thing and I came here in my work jacket.
Right. Okay.
So after the protest, went home, got up for Friday morning, got a phone call from my boss at 8:15.
Right.
Gino Kenny had been on to my boss.
Okay. Do you hear that, folks? Gino Kenny now has rang a man's company here because he saw the logo on his work gear.
But let me be absolutely clear. The fearful concerns of these families are well founded, as incidents of violence have taken place in centres housing the unvetted foreigners, with several other serious crimes taking place around the country, all in the name of diversity. But in spite of being ignored, slandered, and vilified, the families affected by the good intentions of Marxist idiots continue to persevere in protest, much to the dismay of those in power, who have since decided to up the ante in response. Government stooge and foreigner Drew Harris of An Garda Síochána, with the support of Simon Harris TD, has informed the people of Ireland through a press conference that he will use his resources to monitor the digital activities of those he calls far right.
We are gathering information on individuals who, in the background, have a more sinister agenda and wish to use this for their own motives. And their motives are not good. Their motives could be described as being far right, and we are very much aware of that. And our investigations and inquiries are ongoing in respect of them.
In my opinion, this sets the very unsettling precedence of openly attempting to silence dissent from one side of the political spectrum. It must also be said that the term far right is being employed to justify this move, which in my view constitutes the attempted persecution of political opposition. On the 19th of January in Fermoy, County Cork, Derek Bly of Ireland First led a protest made up of men, women and children. During a live stream of the event, Bly noticed a suspicious man wearing a surgical mask monitoring the activities of the protest. Upon investigation, it was discovered that the man was an undercover armed Garda, who in my professional opinion behaved in such a way that lives were put at risk, as he failed to adequately identify himself, amongst other stupid behaviours.
We've a lot of people on the live stream here, okay? You're obviously a guard. Like, are you a guard or a detective or the anti-terror unit?
A guard.
You're just a guard? But you're armed? Yeah, okay, you're just a guard.
The video of the incident can be viewed on Derek Bly's YouTube channel if you care to watch. At this stage, I want to surmise some of the information given and offer my thoughts before moving on. Leaving to one side the fact that government have behaved in such a way over the last 3 years that it should warrant a trial not seen since the execution of Michael Manning in 1954, they have continued to relentlessly pursue their agenda, eroding the freedom of the Irish people in the process. So this is where we're at. Politicians and their supporters are resorting to the slander and vilification of those who stand in defiance. They are in the process of creating laws to criminalise speech in an effort to jail those who stand in defiance. They are hell-bent on bringing into being laws to make it a criminal offence to protest in areas deemed exclusion zones. They are monitoring the social media accounts and recording the movements of people they flippantly brand as far right. And they are sending armed undercover agents who appear to be deeply incompetent to peaceful protests involving women and children. Considering the totalitarian approach this government has persistently relied upon to force obedience, I have some things to say. Firstly, if I happen to stumble across an armed man who fails to adequately identify himself as a member of the relevant authorities, I will consider taking justifiable action that will make for an embarrassing headline in the morning papers. Secondly, the political establishment is incrementally adopting a more targeted and dangerous approach to crushing the freedom of peaceful and innocent people who do not submit to their will. This being the case, I want to reaffirm the following. I swore an oath to be faithful to Ireland and loyal to the Constitution, and I will keep that oath at great cost. Rest assured, I am watching you as diligently as you are watching me, and I am willing to go much farther to protect what I value than you are to take it away from me. I have been writing my story since the age of 17. My military record is not only immaculate, but exceptional, and the videos I have uploaded to this channel are reflective of my love for freedom. I am a true believer. I am a radical. I am an extremist, and I will not bend the knee. Moving on, I want to talk about those in support of the government measures we are currently experiencing to our detriment. For all you illiterate communists who may be listening to my voice, economics is the study of the efficient management of scarcity, a concept I want you to think about as we continue with this video. I attended the protest outside the Shelburne Hotel on Saturday the 21st of January, and I witnessed firsthand your childish and agitated reaction to the following questions asked of you by Stephen Kerr of the Irish Inquiry. How many refugees is enough, and how many refugees are living with you? I will tell you now that nobody answered these questions, and the response to Stephen was very hostile, with his phone being snatched and thrown away at one stage by an obvious waster. But these questions are very important, and the lack of answers would imply a level of both delusion and hypocrisy, and I will explain why. Firstly, the discipline of economics would dictate that accepting an uncapped number of foreigners into Ireland, especially during a crisis of scarcity created by government and exacerbated by government, is stupid at best and suicidal at worst. And all the chanting and singing in the world won't change the fact that we have limited resources being seriously mismanaged by criminal politicians, and there is only so much the government can engage in the communist act of robbing Seamus to pay Dimitri, or robbing Sean to pay Ahmed, through the forced acquisition and redistribution of wealth, as is currently the case. Also, in my humble opinion, government has no moral right to help foreigners at the expense of the Irish. Which brings me to the following question. How many of you Marxist do-gooders have opened up your homes to the foreigners you so dearly care about? How many of you bear the expense of pursuing this humanitarian cause which you claim is the crisis of our time? Needless to say, if I had the power, I would rescind all the money and resources allotted to this fraudulent endeavour and force you to put your money where your mouth is. Because it's this simple. Charity, which is the voluntary act of donating money or resources to a cause, ceases to be charity when the government get involved. Then it becomes policy. And as far as I'm concerned, that simple fact highlights you for the hypocritical, virtue-signalling wasters you demonstrably are. Practically none of you believe in this shambolic cause, because if you did, you would be willing to suffer to see it through, instead of begging government to finance it through the redistribution of wealth, you pathetic, delusional, and painfully stupid babies. In closing, I want to say the following. As previously stated, the term refugee, once used to describe an individual fleeing war or persecution, has now evolved into an umbrella term being deceptively used to describe all foreigners seeking entry to Ireland. And the weaponization of this word has fooled the Irish population into accepting without question tens of thousands of mainly male foreigners into our country. Foreigners who never would have made the journey if people like Roderick O'Gorman hadn't promised them wealth and property upon arrival. And as it stands today, this self-inflicted mess, brought on by Micheál Martin and his treacherous government, by the media coverage, by the hypocritical Marxists, and of course, the ignorant average Irishman in the street, has now led to the so-called refugees, or in reality, unvetted foreign men, sleeping rough in the streets. For all the lies and false promises, government have artificially created yet another crisis, and they have spent billions through the redistribution of taxpayer wealth in achieving this outcome. It should also be said that an externality or a third party effect of this new, dysfunctional, and failing communist system, and it is in fact a communist system, will without doubt lead to an exponential rise in serious crime. And it will only be a matter of time before a homeless, unvetted foreign man, in an act of desperation, murders an innocent man, rapes an innocent woman, beats up a pensioner, or robs a teenager. I just hope when it inevitably happens that it harms those who called for open borders and the persecution of Irish families who have had their lives turned upside down. And make no mistake, much like Sweden, Italy, France, and other European countries with large migrant populations, we are going to find out the hard way that the road to hell is indeed paved with good intentions.